One Piece clones has been one of the hottest topics and mysteries in the world of One Piece. But have you ever wondered which characters will be cloned next? Or even more than that, which of the existing characters we know are already clones? Spoiler warning, not even characters like Luffy or Goldie Roger are safe, as I have gathered many leads hinting that even those two might be cloned. Sit tight, because once again, I'm about to blow your mind. Oda pulled the clones trick numerous times so far, and I am sure that he will repeat it again as we approach the ending of One Piece. He introduced the pacifistas even before the time skip, which as we know are clones of Bartholomew Kuma. We then saw at least 6 different types of clones being in the possession of Germa 66, each type with a different code name. During the Egghead Island arc, we saw 4 warlord clones in the form of seraphims that occurred through the fusion of their lineage factor and the genetic information of Lunarians. S-Snake is the clone of Boa Hancock, S-Hawk is the clone of Mihawk, S-Bear is the clone of Kuma, and S-Shark is the clone of Jinbei. On chapter 1086, Doflamingo, Crocodile, and Moria were shown to be cloned as well in the form of seraphims. As a result, it is very logical to assume that more warlord seraphims will be introduced later on. Even though it was stated that it costs a tremendous amount of money to produce these clones, I am pretty sure that the world government can fund many more clones if they want. Some might say, hold on a minute, Vegapunk no longer wishes to continue working with the world government, right? So how will more clones be produced from here onwards? Well, that's exactly why Oda made Vegapunk have 6 different paths. You see, one of them turned out to be a traitor that sided with the world government. Why would that happen if not for the sole reason of creating more clones later on in the story? But even if this is not the case, who is to say that all the clones we will see later on in the series haven't already been produced? As we mentioned a few moments ago, it is very likely that more warlords will be cloned in order to become seraphims. Blackbeard, Trafalgar Law, Buggy used to be warlords, but have not yet become seraphims. Someone might ask, how does being a warlord give the world government access to their DNA in order to clone them? Well, there are plenty of possible explanations to that. One being that a requirement for becoming a warlord is to give a DNA sample, and hence, the former warlords willingly hand over their DNA without knowing what's about to come. The other possible explanation is through a sneaky way. We know that the world government could assemble the warlords for meetings whenever they saw fit. For example, on chapter 524, we saw that all warlords were offered a meal by the world government in anticipation of the upcoming Marineford War. Hence, they could collect a DNA sample through their plates. But you see, there is another possibility on how the world government managed to clone the warlords. Boa Hancock used to be a slave of the Celestial Dragons, and hence her DNA was easily accessible to the world government. Jinbei, on the other hand, was imprisoned at some point, meaning that his DNA was also very accessible. Kuma willingly became a test subject for the world government. And when it comes to Mihawk now, well, I'll just say that his eyes are very similar to Emu's, so you never know if they are somehow related after all. If the last explanation is true, then Buggy for sure had his DNA taken as well, as he was sent to Impel Down. Doflamingo and Crocodile were also imprisoned after being defeated by Luffy. And finally, Gecko Moria was set up during Marineford and was also sent to prison. This means that from the warlords we stated, Trafalgar Law and Blackbeard will not be cloned. But hold on, there is one former warlord we would like to add some info on, Blackbeard. You see, even though Blackbeard was a warlord and hence has some chances of being cloned later on in the series, there is a possibility for the exact opposite to be true as well, meaning that Blackbeard was a clone of Roxy Shebeck in the first place. There is a very popular theory stating that all members of the Rocks Pirates have already been cloned after their defeat during the God Valley incident. Stussy, for example, has already been confirmed to be the clone of Miss Buckingham, but even like that, I don't think that Blackbeard is the clone of Shebeck, as I have another character in mind for that position. Since we mentioned the Rocks Pirates, who are their clones? Starting off with the captain of the crew, Roxy Shebeck, it's not so difficult to notice the similarity between him and Monkey D. Dragon. Many theories claim that Dragon is the son of Shebeck, but what if their similarity occurs because Dragon is actually the clone of Shebeck? In both of these situations, that would mean that Garp is not his biological father and basically adopted him. If this is true, then that would be a great parallel to Garp adopting Ace as well. After all, we never saw or heard anything about any female partner for Garp so far. Plus, this would explain the connection of Dragon and Vegapunk, in the sense that Vegapunk was the one who created Dragon in the first place. Well, if Dragon is not a clone after all, how about him being cloned? Some theories claim that Dragon used to be a Marine just like Garp. If that was the case, then his DNA would be very easily obtainable by the world government. Moving on to another member of the Rocks Pirates, Big Mom. Especially her younger form features some similarities like their pink hair with Bonnie. However, I think Bonnie is unlikely to be Big Mom's clone because it's already been stated that Kuma is her father. When it comes to Big Mom having another clone, on the other hand, I would say that the theory of all the Rocks Pirates being cloned seems very doable to me, so I won't rule out the possibility of future Big Mom clones being introduced. But you see, the exciting part about that is the fact that this would automatically mean that Kaido, Silver Axe, Captain John, Wang Shi, and Shiki will also feature clones later on. Now, when it comes to Kaido, could this mean that Yamato is his clone? After all, her mother has not been mentioned at all. To be honest, I can't really see this coming true, but you never know. When it comes to Whitebeard, on the other hand, Weevil was proclaimed by Miss Buckingham as Whitebeard's son. I would actually say that it's far more likely for Weevil to be a failed clone of Whitebeard instead. We've been mentioning mostly pirates so far, right? But I would like to ask the following. Why does no one say anything about Marines being cloned? In my opinion, especially the strongest of the Marines have high chances of being cloned. Why would the world government limit themselves to only cloning pirates when they can also clone some of the strongest characters in the world by simply taking a DNA sample from them? As a result, I think that Akainu, Kizaru, Aokiji, Fujitora, Green Bull, Garp, Sengoku, as well as Kong, have some chances of being cloned. The only reason I can think that this might not happen is because the Marines could maybe disagree with this act and not allow for anyone to clone them. But can you imagine how epic that would be if it happened? Just 3 admirals along with some warlords made the Marineford War a living hell. Imagine what would happen in the final war if all these Marines were cloned, as well as get modified on top of that in order to become stronger. Marineford would look like a children's game in front of that. So far, we've covered 5 of the 7 Yonko, leaving out only Shanks and Luffy. But you see, both of them have good chances to be cloned after all. We saw Shanks visiting the 5 Elders, so in our opinion, this means one of 3 things. Number 1 is that Shanks, for some reason, has good relationships with the world government. How, you may ask? Well, I've got 2 very exciting and 1 very depressing theory as to how that could occur. 1 is that Shanks was the son of a celestial dragon. His age matches the God Valley incident, so it's not far-fetched to believe that Roger adopted him after the battle. If Roger actually adopted him, then Shanks is either the son of Shebek or the son of a celestial dragon. If he is the son of a celestial dragon, then that would grant a connection with the world government. The second possible way the world government and Shanks could have a good relationship is through Roger's execution. You see, this theory claims that when Roger was executed, the one who turned him in was Shanks. At this point, you might ask, well, does this mean that Shanks was a traitor? Not necessarily, because Roger might have instructed Shanks to do that in order to gain the trust of the world government, and hence keep a close eye on them from within, as the world government would then consider Shanks an ally. Roger was going to die one way or another because of his disease. So with this move, he managed to make the youngest member of the crew a double agent, hence allowing him many more years to be close to the world government and monitor their actions. Oda really likes to play with the traitor pattern, many times, even more than once, in the sense that certain characters are not even double agents, but rather triple agents like Stussy. That could also give a deeper meaning to Shanks being shown as the most heartbroken from Roger's execution, in the sense that he felt guilty for turning him in. However, even though all these make sense, there is another kind of depressing theory on how Shanks has good relationships with the world government. This theory claims that Shanks is a villain and is basically just manipulating Luffy from the start. However, all of these could be false, as Shanks might not have the trust of the world government after all. Then you could ask, if that were the case, then how did Shanks manage to visit the 5 Elders, while they were also expecting him as well? Well, that's because the person that visited the 5 Elders is not Shanks after all, meaning that this person could be Shanks' twin brother. Or finally, the topic of today's video is clone. How about Shanks' characteristic scar in the 5 Elders meeting? Well, this reinforces the theory that the person who visited the 5 Elders was not Shanks after all, as the angle we got is from his right side, as if Oda and Tomy Animation purposefully did not want us to see his left side. Why is that? Because again, this guy might not be Shanks after all, but his brother or clone. For this theory, I will also add another final but also very important fact. In 2019, Oda was asked in an SBS if Shanks is 2 people, since during the Marineford War, he managed to both stop Kaido from attending the war, but also made it in time to stop the the war as well. Would you like to guess Oda's answer to this question? Open parenthesis, censored, closed parenthesis. Oda refused to answer this question. Why was that? Even though all these potential clones are pretty exciting, when it comes to Luffy, this theory is even more mind-blowing. You see, Luffy's mother has not been revealed yet. Not only that, but when Garp told Luffy that Dragon was his father, Luffy's response was, quote, "I have a dad?" Even though most of us took this moment as comic relief, what if that wasn't the case? What if, after all, this was yet another elite foreshadowing from Oda, in the sense that Luffy does not have a dad, but rather he is a clone of someone? But who? Well, your guess would be as good as mine, to be honest, as this could even be a character we did not see yet in One Piece. Some older theories claim that Luffy could be the clone of Roger. Although I am not ruling out that theory, I must admit that I am not the biggest fan of it either. But you see, even if this does not end up becoming true, how about Luffy's DNA being used to produce clones instead? We previously mentioned that in order for the world government to do that, they would need to get a DNA sample from Luffy. Well, do the words Impel Down ring any bells to you? Luffy was imprisoned in Impel Down, and hence, the world government could very easily obtain a sample from him. This could also explain how Madame Charlie saw Luffy in her sphere destroying the Fishman Island. We know that Luffy would never do something this malicious without a good reason. So what if the person that Madame Charlie saw destroying the Fishman Island is not Luffy, but rather his clone? I think that Luffy has good chances of either being a clone or being used to produce clones later on, as this would be yet another epic plot twist. From the future Pirate King to the last Pirate King, Goldie Roger. You see, this has been bugging me for months now, and I'm actually really surprised that almost no one seems to be talking about it. Roger was executed, and his body was in the possession of the world government. I don't know, just a thought here, but maybe the world government would not miss the opportunity to use the strength of Roger. I mean, come on, guys. He should have been the best candidate for cloning. In my opinion, this has the most chances of happening so far, and hence, I would consider it almost certain to happen. Even though we covered many potential clones, there are two more cases we would like to mention. What if Tashigi is the clone of Kuina? Their resemblance is obviously way too much to ignore. And knowing what we do now, with the many cases of cloning, I would argue that both Kuina and Tashigi have good chances of being somehow related to cloning. But you see, this is just one of the many open mysteries in One Piece. In this video, we present 30 of the most important mysteries yet to be solved in One Piece. Go on, check it out!